A tourist spat in a royal guard's face, but seconds later, he fell completely silent. It happened in broad daylight, in front of Buckingham Palace. Thousands of tourists lined the ropes, phones in hand, murmuring in awe at the stoic men in red uniforms, the royal guards, known for their silence, their stillness, their legendary discipline. And then, one man crossed the line. He didn't trip, he didn't stumble. He looked the guard in the eye, leaned in, and spat directly in his face. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The guard didn't move, not an inch. But what happened seconds later left the entire square frozen in stunned silence and changed the course of the tourist's life forever. His name was Tyler McConnell, 29 years old, a self-proclaimed shock vlogger from Tampa, Florida. His YouTube channel, Tyler Unfiltered, had over 3 million subscribers built on public stunts, pranks, and social experiments that usually involved yelling in libraries or pretending to faint in malls. He called it breaking social boundaries. Most others just called it disrespect. But Tyler didn't care. He wasn't in it for approval. He was in it for clicks. When he landed in London for the first time, the idea came fast and loud. "British people are so uptight," he said to his camera. "Let's see if the Queen statues can take a little American spice." That morning, he showed up to Buckingham Palace wearing a Union Jack tank top and aviator sunglasses. He had 2 GoPros strapped to his chest, another clipped to his friend Zach, who stood a few meters back pretending to be just another tourist. The palace square was buzzing. Families, tourists, field trip groups. The changing of the guard was about to begin. Drums in the distance, hooves on cobblestones. And then he spotted him. A royal guard in full uniform, impeccable, imposing, still as stone. Tyler pointed. "That one," he whispered to Zach. "Front and center. Perfect shot." They waited. He filmed a fake intro about British tradition, pretended to ask polite questions, then slowly edged forward. Security didn't move. He wasn't yet over the rope. He leaned in. "Hey, man," he whispered mockingly. "Why so serious?" The guard didn't blink. Tyler smirked. And just as the ceremonial drums hit their crescendo, he crossed the line both physically and morally. He stepped forward, just inches from the guard's face, and with a twisted smile, he spat. For a full second, time stopped. The spit clung to the guard's cheek, glistening in the sunlight, impossibly visible to the horrified onlookers. Children gasped. An elderly woman covered her mouth. A group of students froze, their phones halfway raised. And Tyler? He just stood there, smug, facing the camera. "You see that?" he whispered to Zach behind him. "He's not even gonna move. No reaction. That's commitment, bro." But there was a shift. Not in the guard's stance, no. His posture remained exact, but in the air around him. The entire square seemed to grow quieter. One man in the crowd began shouting, "Get him out of here!" A woman's voice cut through. "That's disgusting. He's a soldier." But Tyler simply held up his hand like a celebrity and turned to face his GoPro. "See, guys? This is how deep the program goes. No matter what you do to them, they just take it." He smirked again. But what he didn't notice was that the guard had moved. Not much, not dramatically. Just one subtle shift. His left foot rotated back ever so slightly. His shoulders squared, and his gaze lowered directly into Tyler's. No words, no twitch of anger, just complete and total focus. Tyler blinked. For the first time, he hesitated. And then, without warning, The guard raised his right hand not to strike, but to signal. Instantly, two palace stewards emerged from the edge of the gates, but not in a rush, not with force. Instead, they calmly approached, one holding something unexpected. A white cloth. They handed it not to Tyler but to the guard. The guard took the cloth. Still in silence, still expressionless, and with the slowest, most deliberate motion imaginable, he wiped the spit from his cheek, folded the cloth, and handed it back, then returned to position. The square was dead quiet. Tyler tried to speak, tried to crack a joke, but nothing came out. His voice failed him. His chest tightened. For the first time in his online career, he had no punchline. Tyler stumbled back 2 steps. His camera still rolled, but his posture shifted. Gone was the swagger, the cocky grin, in its place unease. He didn't even flinch, he muttered, more to himself than to Zach. The crowd hadn't moved. Dozens of strangers stood still, watching silently as the guard returned to his rigid posture. But this silence wasn't the usual reverence given to the royal guard. It felt deeper, heavier. Something in the guard's eyes had changed. Tyler turned away, trying to shake it off. "Let's just go," he hissed. "Let's edit it later." But as he moved to leave, a voice low, firm, and distinctly British cut through the air. "Not so fast, Mr. McConnell." It came from behind the line, a tall officer in a decorated uniform, stepping forward from the shadows near the main gate. His name tag read, Colonel D. Hargrove. He didn't yell. He didn't call security. He simply nodded toward the guard. "Do you have any idea who you just disrespected?" Tyler stammered, He's just one of the red coat guys, right? The guys that stand still?" Colonel Hargrove's jaw tightened. "That man is Sergeant Elijah Ward. He served in Her Majesty's Special Reconnaissance Regiment. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Syria. He lost his ability to speak in 2016, saving a team of civilian aid workers from an IED blast." The words hit like punches. "He hasn't spoken since," the colonel continued, "but he requested by written letter to return to duty as a guard. He said, 'I want to protect the dignity of this country, even if I do it in silence.'" Tyler's face went pale. The crowd, now hundreds strong, stood stunned. Not angry, not aggressive, just disappointed, deeply. A child stepped forward, no more than 10 years old, and asked, "Is he a hero?" The colonel looked down, then back at the guard. "Yes, and more." Tyler dropped his camera. Literally. It clattered onto the pavement. Zach didn't pick it up. No one did. Because what Tyler had just filmed wasn't a prank. It wasn't a stunt. It was the moment he broke something sacred and stood face to face with a man who had lost his voice to protect the voices of others. The moment went viral, but not the way Tyler intended. Within an hour, multiple tourists had uploaded their footage. Within 6 hours, it was all over the UK. By the next morning, it reached America, and not in the trending section Tyler was used to. Influencer spits on decorated war hero. Royal Guard shows ultimate restraint. The silence that shamed a loudmouth. Tyler's channel, Tyler Unfiltered, was bombarded. Sponsors pulled out. His Instagram lost over 300 followers in a single night. But none of that compared to what haunted him most. That image. That moment. When Sergeant Ward silently wiped his cheek and looked into his soul without saying a word. It stayed with Tyler. In his sleep. In his editing bay. Even when he tried to move on with new videos. He tried to go live, but the chat was relentless. He tried to apologize, but it felt hollow. Until one day, he disappeared from the internet. People speculated. Some mocked. Some defended. But the truth? He was writing a letter. A real one. By hand. Mailed directly to the British Royal Guard Regiment. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't public. But it said things no video ever could. I thought I was fearless. Turns out I was just loud. You stood there and didn't need to say a word to show me everything I was missing. I'm sorry. Not just for the spit, but for being blind to the kind of strength I now wish I had. If he ever wants to see it, I left something in the envelope. Inside the envelope was the very first sponsorship check Tyler had ever earned, unsigned, uncashed, and a note requesting that it be donated to wounded veterans. He never posted about it, never announced it, because for once in his life, he didn't want the attention. 1 year later, Buckingham Palace, early spring. The sky painted in muted blues and soft golds. The crowd was smaller today. Fewer tourists, fewer phones, but among them, a familiar face. No camera, no GoPro, no entourage. Just Tyler McConnell wearing a plain gray coat, a poppy pin on his lapel, and something no one had seen from him before: humility. He stood quietly behind the rope line. At exactly noon, the changing of the guard began, and then, among the line of red uniforms and silent steps, Sergeant Elijah Ward took his position. Still silent, still composed, still watching everything. Tyler didn't move, didn't speak, but as the guard passed by, something unexpected happened. Sergeant Ward, still in formation, turned his head, just slightly, just enough for their eyes to meet. And for a split second, Tyler raised his hand to his chest and gave a small, respectful nod. Sergeant Ward gave nothing in return. But in that absence, there was more than forgiveness. There was recognition. And when the guard marched past, the boy next to Tyler leaned over and asked, "Was that the guy who got spat on?" Tyler smiled, not the kind of grin his old fans knew, but a quiet, grateful one. "That was the guy who taught me silence isn't weakness." The boy nodded. "He looks strong." "He is," Tyler replied, "stronger than I'll ever be." As the drums faded and the formation disappeared into the gates, Tyler turned and walked away. No post, no tweet, no camera rolling, just a man, changed not by fame, but by the unspoken strength of a soldier who never needed to raise his voice to make the world listen.